The real hip hop. The real hip hop.
Oh, hi. Glad you could join me. It's Mr. Finelli with our read aloud, Poppy from Avi. Today we'll be doing Chapter 2, Poppy Remembers. But first, let's take a quick look back at some of the events that unfolded and some of our characters. So far, we have a deer mouse named Poppy, who's our main character. Her friend, Ragweed, who's a golden mouse. And they went out to a place called Bannock Hill in the Dimwood Forest where they live. And they were going to dance and hang out and whatnot, but Poppy was too scared. Over and over, she insisted that they shouldn't be there because of Mr. Okax, the great horned owl, and that they didn't ask permission. But Ragweed, headstrong and stubborn, said he wasn't going to ask an old owl's permission every time he wanted to do something fun. Something ironic is, I think his last words were, "Girl, you don't know how to live like I do." And then Mr. Okax attacks, kills Ragweed, scratches Poppy right across the nose, but she's able to dive back under cover of the rotten log, but it was too late for Ragweed. He was dead. This is where it picks up. Chapter 2, Poppy Remembers. Now, a quick side note is that people often get confused because in a minute we're going to hear from Ragweed. We're going to hear about him, see what his past life was like. But isn't he dead? He is. The author uses this chance for Poppy to remember her earlier life so we can get a glimpse into Ragweed's again. So here we go. A stinging sensation on her nose woke Poppy. She touched a paw to a sore spot and winced. And then she looked about in the dark and shook her head with confusion. Where was she? Under a piece of rotten bark? Where was the bark on Bannock Hill? What was she doing there? She had come with her boyfriend, Ragweed. Where was Ragweed? And no sooner did Poppy ask herself that than the full horror of what happened rushed upon her. Ragweed's dead. Eaten, probably. Poppy closed her eyes. The sheer ghastliness of the thought made it hard for her to breathe. Then, recalling how close she had come to the same fate, she checked herself for other injuries. Though her plump, round belly was white, the rest of her fur was orange-brown. She had large ears and a dark, almost round eyes, full whiskers, tiny nose, pink toes, and a tail. Even for a deer mouse, Poppy was rather dainty. Upon examination, though, everything except the nose seemed to be intact. She stole a look out from under the bark and considered her situation. She was on Bannock Hill, alone, and without permission. Oh, how she wished she were home. From her earliest days, just a few full moons ago. Side note, let's take a little break. This is the moment we're going to see Poppy remembering now. She wakes up and is considering her situation right after the owl attack. Now at this moment, she's remembering back. From her earliest days, just a few full moons ago, her parents had been teaching their litter about Mr. Okax. She recalled how they had all lined up, all 12 of them, to take on instruction. "Mr. Okax has been about for ages," her father, Longwort, lectured in his sternest voice. He was a rather stout fellow with elegantly curled whiskers and slightly protruding front teeth. His crowning glory was an ivory thimble he had found and which, ever since, had worn as a cap. "Mr. Okax has been here longer than any mouse's living memory," Longwort continued. "The territory around Dimwood belongs to him. Mr. Okax is king. And he protects us. Sweet Cicely, Longwort's wife and Poppy's mother. And that's the most important thing." Sweet Cicely was a small creature, even for a deer mouse, with soft, pale eyes and a nervous habit of flicking at her ears, as if they were dusty. Kind of like Mr. Roth does, you know. "Protects us from what?" Poppy remembered Ragweed asking. An outsider. He had taken to hanging around the family. He was always asking for answers. Why do deer mice live here and not there? Why do you folks eat this and not that? Why is your fur dark on top and white on bottom when mine's golden? Why couldn't it be the other way around? Now, though these constant questions could be irritating, Poppy had to admit that she often wondered about the answers. Curiosity, however, was not something her parents encouraged. Poppy admired Ragweed's persistence. Mr. Oak Axe protects us from creatures that eat us, Lungwort answered gravely. Raccoons, foxes, skunks, weasels, and stoats. One by one, he displayed pictures of these animals. Most important, he protects us from porcupines, like this one. He held up a lurid picture of a huge black-nosed beast covered with gruesome spikes. Blood seemed to drip out from his snarling mouth. The young mice all gasped in dread. Porcupines are our particular enemy, Lungwort insisted. There's nothing porcupines won't do to catch a mice. What would they do with one of us? Acorn, one of Poppy's sisters, asked in a trembling voice. Well, first, they shoot their barbed quills into you, Lungwort said. And then they trample you, Sweet Cicely added. And finally, Lungwort concluded, they break you up into little bits and gobble you up. Now it was terror the young mice felt, all except Ragweed. Lungwort, he demanded. Other than that picture, you ever seen a porcupine, a real one? Well, not precisely, Lungwort snapped. But let me tell you something, Ragweed. I'd be more than thrilled to get through my whole life without ever seeing one. After all, Mr. Oakex has seen porcupines, often, in private conversations with me, mind. These are actual personal experiences I can verify. He informed me that porcupines are not only extremely dangerous, but also devilishly sly. Now, take note that this judgment comes from a powerful meat-eating bird. The point is, Mr. Oakex protects us from porcupines. It was he, in fact, who was kind enough to educate us about them, as well as supply all of these pictures. Then how come you have to worry about this dude Oakex, too? Ragweed pressed. Struggling to control his temper, Lungwort tapped his thimble cap down over his forehead, and fuming, he replied, Mr. Oakex protects us from vicious porcupines only when we accept him as our ruler, that's why. All he requires is that we ask his permission whenever we move beyond the immediate area of Grey House. We have freedom to go about Old Orchard up to Glitter Creek. We can do the same for Farmer Lamont's fields. At our own risk, mind you. Life is full of danger. Go beyond, however, and we need to get Mr. Oakex's permission. What's his reason? Ragweed persevered. Now, Sweet Cicely, brushing her ears, sighed with exasperation. How Poppy, her own daughter, could take up with such an ill-mannered ruffian was beyond her understanding. All the same, she said, Ragweed, as Mr. Oakex has patiently explained to my husband, he needs to know if we're moving about so he won't mistake us for porcupines. Asking his permission is a small sacrifice to pay for our safety. Lungwort nodded in agreement. That owl, he pointed out, has incredible vision and hearing. He can hear or see anything, even in the dark. And a good thing, too, porcupines prowl at night. A move like lightning. Mr. Oakex says, shoot quills without asking questions, and kill without mercy. Now, my boy, we don't argue with Mr. Oakex. He's our protector. If we disobey him and break his rules, and I can't say I blame him either, he gets upset. What will he do then? Asked Leaf, one of Poppy's brothers. He'll eat you, Lungwort replied briskly as he put away the pictures of the porcupine. And, he continued, it's happened. During the past year, we have lost some 15 family members. It may be presumed they all failed to ask Mr. Oakex for permission to go somewhere. The children were shocked into silence. Ragweed, however, spoke out again. Hey, Pops, didn't I hear you say porcupines are huge? You saw the picture? And don't call me Pops, it's common. Okay, so them there porcupines are bigger than us, right? A lot bigger, Sweet Cicely said, emphasizing a lot. Okay, so, well, old lady, Ragweed kept on, if them there porcupines are so huge and we're so small, and if this dude Al has such amazing sight, how come he might confuse us mice with them there dude porcupines? You know what I'm saying? An indignant sweet Cicely looked to her husband. Lungwort sputtered. Ragweed, for your information, proper grammatical usage is those porcupines, not them there porcupines. And while I'm thinking about it, if you intend to court my daughter, I'll think you to groom your hair properly when you get up in the morning. And as for that earring you've been taking to wearing, I don't like it. Not one bit. This family's committed to keeping up mice values and is opposed to stupid questions. With that, Lungwort stalked away, tail whipping about in agitation. Back to the present time. When Bannakill, Poppy remembered it all. She also remembered it was Ragweed who had insisted they come up to the hill, but that he had absolutely refused to ask permission to be there. Perhaps then what occurred, horrible as it had been, had served Ragweed right. Then and there, Poppy vowed she would never leave home again. The difficulty was that at that moment, she was far from home, frightened and alone. That concludes chapter 2. She's in quite the predicament. She just escaped one vicious attack. She lost it to her friend, and she has to make it back home knowing that Mr. Okax is still out there. Chapter 3 will be coming shortly, which I'm very excited about. It's her adventure getting back to Grey House, her home. A side note now, you may have seen some vocabulary start to appear on the videos. There are certain words I pulled out that I thought are just good to know. Now, you're not expected to write those down or do anything like that, but I'll be uploading the website, a Quizlet. That's Quizlet.com. My students use it a lot of the time to practice vocabulary. It's really fun. It's completely optional, but if you want to test your skills with some of the vocab, they've got great typing games. They've got matching memory games with some of the vocab. You can make your own tests and quiz yourself. It's really kind of fun to do, and you can give me some feedback on how you're doing with those. But I'll post the username and password as well. Everyone's accepted in there, okay? So until then. See ya.